Hello everyone, it's Alice, and since summer is pretty much here, we gotta do a summer TBR. Now, because I am a mood reader, I never quite know what I'm gonna end up reading until I actually do, but I have like a vague idea of the books that I want to get to in the next couple of months, and I've picked some out, so let's just get into it. The first one is a classic, and it will be a reread for me, and there's something about this book that just reminds me of summer for whatever reason, but you can obviously read this whenever you want. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which of course tells the story of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. I first read this like I'm older than that. I read this a good while ago, and I haven't reread it since, I don't think, and I just kind of want to. So that's why it's here. This is my favorite Jane Austen, although I haven't read all of them, but it's my favorite out of the ones that I've read. And I think the reason I associate it with summer is because I read it for the first time in summer, and I also love the 2005 movie adaptation of this book. I've seen that movie maybe 100 times, and it has a very summery vibe to it. So for some reason, this book just screams summer to me, and it's been such a long time since I read it the first time that I really just need to reread it, and I can't wait to just sit down with this and enjoy it. Secondly, I want to read Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. The main reason I want to read this is because I read Kindred by Butler a couple of months ago, and I loved that book, and it made me want to read more of her work, and I have this one, so I want to read this one. This is science fiction, and we follow this woman who awakens on this massive alien spacecraft after, I think they came to Earth right before humanity was about to go extinct, and they've taken these people and kept them asleep on the spacecraft for centuries while they've been like learning about humans and fixing Earth, and now they want to put the people back on Earth. But like with all things, nothing is ever free, and the price for this is that these aliens, I think they basically just want to mate with the humans, and they're gonna do it whether the people want to or not, which sounds absolutely terrifying. I think that Butler, like her writing style, is just chef's kiss, so I think this is gonna be amazing and probably a little terrifying, but I just think it's going to be so good. Like, I'm really, really looking forward to it. It is also the first in a trilogy, so who knows? Maybe I'll end up reading the whole trilogy this summer. That would be really fun. I also absolutely love these editions. There are these kinds of editions of the second and third book, I'm pretty sure, because I sure as hell hope so, because those are the ones that I want. Then we have got another classic, but it's by an author I haven't tried before. It's The Sea by Iris Murdoch, and I just want to try some of her work. I also just like, when I was perusing my shelves, I saw this book, and this has a very like spring / summery cover to me. Like, there's something about it that just makes me think of that. I also love these editions. They are beautiful. I love a good like high quality paperback. Like, nothing will get me like these kinds of books. Anyways, the story in here is about this writer who is like super famous and well known, who decides to retire and go to his like home by the sea, and he plans to write his memoir. And it seems like he kind of like loses it in the process of trying to do that, and we all love a good descent into madness, so that'll be interesting to read. It is quite a chunky book, but I'm really looking forward to trying out this author's writing because I've heard so many good things about it, and I've read snippets and it looks really good. It appears to be quite like dense, but I'm hoping it's going to be dense in a good way. Also, like, the font in this is pretty tiny, so this is quite a chunky book, but I really just want to try it, and I think it's going to be amazing. At least I hope so. Next, we have got a couple of books in series that I'm reading. Firstly, we have The Bombay Prince by Sujata Massey, and I really want to read this during summer because I've read the previous two books during summer, and there's something about it that I just associate with it. And these books are also set in Bombay, and usually it's quite hot there, which also makes me think of summer. This series follows a female lawyer in the 1920s, and we've followed her for a couple of books now, and I love reading about her. She always ends up investigating cases that no one else can investigate or wants to. And in this one, I think it's set during a year where there's a lot of political unrest in Bombay, and she investigates the case of this female student who dies. And I think it's one of those cases where someone is trying to like sweep it under the rug, but our main character will not allow that to happen. The second one that I have is The House Witch 2, which is the sequel to House Witch 1. And I just chuckle whenever I talk about these books because it's so rare that books are just called the same thing and like 1, 2, 3. But this series is, which is fine, and this is like cozy fantasy, and I so enjoyed the first book, and I'm really looking forward to delving into this. The series follows this house witch in this fantastical land, and he works as the royal cook for the royal family, and it's just about him and his life and all of the people in the castle, and it's so cozy and wonderful, and I, like I mentioned, really enjoyed the first book. The first book did leave a lot of loose threads, so I'm looking forward to like picking those back up, and I hope that this is going to be as enjoyable as the first one, and there's going to be all of these lovely descriptions of the people and the food and the life in this castle. It's just so lovely. Then I've got a book I'm fairly certain was on my summer TBR last year, so whoops, but here it is again. It's The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne, and I have read one other book by John Boyne that I really liked, and I've thought about that book so much since I finished it, and I just need to read more of his work, and I've picked this one out to be my next one, and I just need to read it. In this one, we follow a man who was adopted as a child, and he spends his whole life just trying to figure out who he is. The only thing that really anchors him to this life is his relationship with his best friend, who seems to be a little mysterious and kind of dangerous, and we just follow this guy throughout his whole life, which I just think sounds amazing. Like, it sounds like the kind of book I can just dive into and stay in for a while. I think the thing that makes me apprehensive is that this is kind of like a chunky book, and sometimes I worry about that a little bit, but like with the other book that I read, it was also chunky, and I loved every single page, so I really shouldn't worry. I should just start reading this. Next, we have got The Most Beautiful Book. This is Island Queen by Vanessa Riley, and I just need to spend like a minute talking about this cover because this is one of my favorite covers ever. This is beautiful. I would easily like put this on my wall if I could. It's so good. Why aren't all book covers like this? It's probably a good thing actually, because that would be terrible for my personal finances. All of that aside though, this sounds amazing. It's historical fiction, and it's based on a true story, and it's about this free woman of color who rose from slavery to become one of the most powerful and rich landowners in the colonial West Indies. And like, who doesn't want to read a book about that kind of story? Like, it just sounds amazing. And I can't wait to get into this and get to know this woman because she sounds fantastic and just fascinating. Then we've got a book that I'm really looking forward to. It's Special Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessl, and I'm pretty sure this is kind of like dark academia, and then it's also a coming of age story, and I love both of those things a lot, so this just seems to be the perfect book for me. We follow a young girl in here who moves around with her dad a lot, but she's very clever and academically gifted, and I think we meet her in her final year of high school, and she's at this school in North Carolina, and she falls in with this group of charismatic like people, and there's also this mysterious and persuasive teacher, and that is just a perfect setup. Feels very like dark academia or like academic, which I love, and I've heard a lot of really good things about this book, and I just think it's gonna be so good. It reminds me a little bit of one of my other favorite books, which if you know, you know, but we can't compare anything to that book because nothing ever measures up, but it reminds me a little bit of that. Lastly, we have got a couple of mystery thrillers because it wouldn't be summer without it. The first one is one I've had for a while. It's The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. And this author is a little bit hit or miss for me, which I feel like is a lot of people's experience with this author. But when it's good, it's really, really good. So I keep reading her books because of that. And I've never read a book by her that I've absolutely hated. I've also heard that this is one of her better ones. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I'm gonna like it. This follows a woman who receives this letter telling her that she has, like, come into an inheritance, but she very quickly realizes that the letter has been sent to the wrong person and it's not actually meant for her. But she goes along with it to see if she can get some money out of it, which is super shady, but sounds like a very interesting character to read about, and I think it sounds like a great setup. At the very end, we have this, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, and this is about a group of girls who have all survived tragedies, making them final girls, and they are in, like, group therapy together, which I am sure that they need because, gosh. I think something happens where someone is starting to, like, pick them off one by one and they start dying, which sounds absolutely terrifying, and, like, when you've already survived something, you gotta go through that too. Sounds horrible. But it also sounds very interesting. And I have read another book by Grady Hendrix and I really enjoyed it. And I also read that book during summer, which makes me think I'm gonna like reading this in summer, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but here we are. That was it for my stack of books for today though. Hopefully I will get to at least some of these over the next couple of months. I do think there is something really special about reading in summer, although I don't love the heat. And so far in Oslo, it hasn't been too bad. It's been manageable, which I appreciate, and at least this past week it's been very, very windy, but I prefer that to, like, massive heat because I can't deal with that at all. I don't know why this turned into a weather update, but there you go. I would love to hear what books you are planning on reading over the summer months, and as always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!